Good morning. I am Sergeant India Sturgis, Director of Public Information for the Delaware State Police. On behalf of Colonel Melissa Zebley and the women and men of the Delaware State Police, I would like to welcome you here today as you join our Centennial Anniversary celebration. We would like to thank our distinguished guests for being here with us this morning, including Governor John Carney, Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long, U.S. Senator Carper, U.S. Senator Coons, Attorney General Kathleen Jennings, Ms. Krista Weed on behalf of Representative Blunt Rochester, Representative Schwarzkopf, who is a retired captain with the Delaware State Police, Representative Ramon, Senator Sokola, Senator Townsend, Senator Hocker, Senator Lawson, who is a retired lieutenant with the Delaware State Police, and Secretary of the Delaware Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Nathaniel McQueen Jr., a retired colonel with the Delaware State Police. Also joining me today are members of the Delaware State Police Executive Staff and Chaplain Corps. I'm absolutely elated to be here with each and every one of you as we reflect on the rich history of the Delaware State Police. From our humble beginnings on April 28, 1923, the Delaware State Police has evolved from 4 horsemen to a police agency addressing every public safety need. In the last century, Delaware State Police has achieved some historical milestones, transitioning from 4 security dogs to the first K-9 unit, from motorcycles to the first fleet of patrol vehicles, and from an all-male sworn workforce to a workforce comprised of sworn and civilian personnel. This trend of firsts continued with the formation of Camp Barnes, which is also celebrating its diamond anniversary this year. Along the way, we added a helicopter to our patrol fleet and eventually established an aviation unit. Embracing the spirit of diversity, the Delaware State Police continued to progress by hiring its first female trooper, its first African-American trooper, and subsequently appointed its first African-American superintendent, followed by its first female superintendent. In a moment, I will introduce several dignitaries. It is our hope that their remarks spark memories of pride for those who have served and those who continue to serve. We are proud of our diverse accomplishments in the first 100 years and know they demonstrate the growth and equity and inclusion within our nation, all the while fostering partnerships with the communities we serve. We look forward to our next century of service as we continue to progress and provide professional, competent, and compassionate law enforcement services. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of colors by the Delaware State Police Honor Guard and Pipes and Drums. Please remain standing after the posting of colors while Miss Adria Windish performs our national anthem. All uniformed personnel, please don your covers and follow the commands of the Honor Guard.
Pipes and drums! Grand old flag by the center! Quick! March! Detail! Forward! Whoop!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Detail! Order! Up! Pipes and drums! Minstrel boy! By the center! Forward! March! Detail! Put! Hey! Forward! Up! Detail! Modified parade! Rest!
At this time, Delaware State Police Chaplain, Reverend Jeffrey Miller, will offer the invocation.
Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for being the gracious God that you are. But more specifically, Lord, we gather today to thank you for being both shield and guide for the Delaware State Police for 100 years. Lord, we pray that we continue to walk in accordance to your statutes, that we may continue to be recipients of your steadfast love and your blessings. For without you, Lord, we know we can do nothing. Let us fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of mankind. Amen.
Please be seated. It is my honor to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Meadows, who will provide some history about the Delaware State Police uniform.
As we celebrate the 100-year history of the Delaware State Police, we are proud to present several replica uniforms for this special occasion to accurately depict our history. Most of the uniforms you will see are accurate replica uniforms to illustrate specific time frames in our agency's history. A couple of these uniforms are actually original uniforms from the time in which they were worn by Delaware State troopers. We would like to thank and acknowledge our fellow troopers representing Rhode Island and the New York State Police who generously contributed to these replica uniforms by supplying items from their own uniform stock. Your support is greatly appreciated. Law enforcement uniforms and insignia vary widely and universally serve as a visible representation of authority, respect, integrity, trust, and protection. Uniforms also serve as an outward representation of an agency's history and professionalism, both of which have been at the core of the various uniforms of a Delaware State Trooper since the 1920s, when the forerunner of the modern-day state police, the State Highway Police, was initially created. The very first uniforms of the Delaware State Highway Police paid homage to the uniforms worn by the Pennsylvania State Police at that time. A fitting tribute given that Captain August Alquist of the Pennsylvania State Police Constabulary was loaned to Delaware in 1923 to reorganize and introduce standardized training to the State Highway Police, who were on the verge of becoming the state police. A dark gray uniform was chosen with a single patch placed on the left sleeve. It depicted a single winged wheel. This winged wheel, a symbol representing transport, speed, and progress, was used widely during that time period. The non-commissioned officers of the Highway Department wore boots, puttees, and black gauntlets as they rode motorcycles year-round, patrolling the state's highways. A simple shield badge was chosen. In fact, the stock badge that was used at the time displayed an eagle on top of the shield. That eagle was simply milled off the badges of the time. Accompanying the breast badge was a matching silver hat badge that displayed the Delaware State Seal, along with an identification number that matched the breast badge. Commissioned officers of the time, captains and lieutenants, wore white shirts to differentiate themselves from the non-commissioned officers who wore gray shirts. They also wore striped neckties. Unlike the non-commissioned officers, their gold-colored badges were left with the eagles intact. While officers in surrounding states chose collar brass specific to their states, so triangles in New Jersey, state seals in Maryland, and keystones in Pennsylvania, Delaware chose a simple design, the Del pin. All sworn members wore metal pins on each of their collars with the words D, E, and L, simple and straightforward. A variation of the Del pins of the 1920s are actually still worn today. As early as 1929, discussions were underway to modify the uniforms of the state police. An article from March of that year read, Delaware's highway police may patrol the roads in the summer in a colorful uniform, instead of the drab gray that they now wear. The change from the regulation black and corded suit with gray trimmings is being made because of the resemblance that patrolmen have to bus drivers, who actually also wear Sam Brown belts, to gas station attendants, as well as many others who have been togged out in uniforms and puttees. Many motorists who have been overtaken by the patrolmen have declared that the reason they did not stop when they were called upon to do so was because they did not recognize them as policemen and thought it was some scheme to have them stop at a tourist camp or something of that kind. By 1932, the move from the drab gray uniform was complete, and troopers began wearing a distinctive uniform that included a navy blue blouse with khaki green breeches emblazoned with a navy blue stripe. While the hat and breast badges remained the same, the shoulder patch changed significantly. The second shoulder patch incorporated the blue hen chicken. Despite not being adopted as the official state bird until 1939, the incorporation of the chicken and the three chicks is suspected to have been a tribute to the game chickens that were noted for their fighting ability during the Revolutionary War era. This design incorporated three small chicks, which represented the three counties of the state, while the chicken symbolizes the state police, the protector of all. These chicken patches changed in shape and design, while the overall uniform design lasted for the duration of the Second World War. It was during World War II that police agencies across the nation found themselves supplying the war effort with sworn officers from within their ranks. That reality, coupled with the overwhelming fear that there would be attack on the American mainland, led to the creation of auxiliary police forces nationwide. The Delaware State Police were no different. A November 1941 news article referenced that the auxiliary police functions will be the enforcement of emergency restrictions on lighting and prohibitions on trespassing, guarding docks, bridges, and factories to prevent sabotage, traffic duty to facilitate movement of essential vehicles, prevention of looting at partially demolished shops and homes, and assistance to air raid protection before, during, and after a raid. The auxiliary state police wore a markedly different uniform and were equipped with batons only. Years after their formation, discussion regarding the scope of how the auxiliary state police should be utilized led then Superintendent Haviland to be quoted as saying, "We as state police are paid to be killed, you might say. We do not know what the liability would be in an event an auxiliary policeman is injured while on duty and not directly connected with the war effort. As such, the scope of authority of the auxiliary state police remained limited." As World War II raged on, a decision was made to change the uniform of Delaware troopers once again. The shoulder patch became a simple two-tone diamond, paying homage to the reference made centuries ago by Thomas Jefferson when he referred to Delaware as a jewel, hence the moniker, the Diamond State. A May 1944 newspaper article referencing the uniform change stated the uniforms were designed to conform as closely as possible to state colors, colonial buff and blue. The article continued by saying that the new uniform is brighter hued than the present dark blue and khaki uniform, and that the blouse or coat of the new uniform is of indigo or dark blue with light or powder blue trim on the lower part of the sleeves and on the shoulders. Breeches are of light blue with a gold stripe. In short time, yet another change was made from the colonial blue bus driver style hat to what was described as one of the most marked innovations, the use of the new brown trooper style Stetson. It was noted at the time that the summer uniforms for Delaware state troopers were modeled partly after New York state troopers' uniforms, but conformed as closely as possible with Delaware state colors. It was also at this time that the holster was changed from the cross-draw style holster to the quick-draw type carried on the right side to increase efficiency. The uniform change of the 1940s accompanied yet another significant change. It was at this point in the agency's history that the stations, dating back to the 1920s, were officially rebranded as troops. Additionally, from that point on, the title of trooper became the only official title for Delaware State Police sworn members. In 1956, the state police uniform was subject to one of its last significant transformations. While not a major visual shift, the change from the yellow diamond shoulder patches on both shoulders to a single shield patch on the left shoulder occurred. The reason to just a left shoulder patch was decided upon, in part, was so that motorists would clearly see the patch through the driver's side window of the patrol cruisers. The shield-shaped patch incorporated the Great Seal of the state of Delaware, and within that seal incorporated a wheat sheaf and corn, signifying the agricultural vitality of the state, a ship, symbolizing the state's shipbuilding history and extensive coastal commerce, an ox, symbolizing the importance of animal husbandry to the state, the Delaware River, the mainstay of the state's commerce and transportation system, the farmer, reinforcing the importance of agriculture, the militiaman, symbolizing the crucial role of the citizen soldier to the maintenance of American liberties, and lastly, the state motto, liberty and independence. So within a year of this patch change that marked innovation, where the move to the trooper style Stetson came to an end, and those short-lived Stetsons were replaced with the blue campaign hat that are worn to this day. A 1961 newspaper article made reference to how the state police had, and I quote, gone to great lengths to uniform its men in distinctive dress in order that the general public would not confuse state troopers with the county police or with any special police of local communities. Several years later, that quote applied equally to all troopers. In 1969, the state police hired its first African-American trooper, and by 1976, DSP had hired its first female troopers. Unlike many police agencies during that time, female troopers wore the same uniforms as their male counterparts. By this time, all troopers had transitioned from the Stetsons to blue campaign covers. Over the years, both straw and felt campaign covers have been utilized, using a smaller version of that original hat badge from the Highway Department days. In the mid-2000s, another minor adjustment was made to the uniform, and for the first time in the agency's history, the white shirts of commissioned officers and troopers were retired from service. Present day, all Delaware State troopers wear a colonial blue and buff of the state flag accompanied by navy blue. The boots and breeches that date back to that agency's inception are still worn today, as are modern day Del pins, a modified version of the originals that now incorporate the state seal. That simple shield-shaped badge that stands as a symbol of protection has changed very little over the years. For calendar year 2023, troopers are also wearing diamond-shaped Centennial hat badges and tie tacks. These uniform items purposefully incorporate the winged wheel and modern-day shoulder patch as bookends, signifying our proud heritage and the uniform history. The uniform of today's Delaware trooper, while encompassing historical elements that tell our distinctive history, are more than that. Today's Delaware State Police uniform also stands for the professionalism all Delaware troopers strive to embody, as well as the equality of opportunity. The troopers standing in front of this podium right now wear uniforms that have been and will be worn by women and men of all ranks, trooper through colonel. The absolute privilege of wearing this uniform is available to all who earn the right to wear it, and it will be worn into the next century of service with pride. The uniform will continue to be a visual representation of what it means to be a Delaware State Trooper.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Meadows. It is my distinct honor to welcome Delaware's Governor, John Carney, to offer a few remarks.
Lieutenant Colonel Meadows, thank you for that fashion show demonstrating the history of our Delaware State Police. I walked in the room this morning. First of all, welcome, particularly to our visitors from out of state and law enforcement from around the region. Thank you for joining us for this really happy celebration and occasion. When I walked in the chamber, it was filled with luminaries but especially here in the front row. And I'm going to ask all the former colonels that represent about 50 years, about a half century, almost a half century of leadership of the Delaware State Police, if you would stand up for a moment. Jim, you can stay seated if now you want. You're going to stand right up with the rest of them. Thank you. You guys. To our Lieutenant Governor and Senator Sokola, thank you for inviting us into the chamber today and allow us to use this for this auspicious occasion. And to other elected officials who've been introduced and to those of you who are visiting today, this is a really special day. 100 years ago, 2 bills in the General Assembly created the Delaware State Police. The force started with 3 men and 3 motorcycles. It was a different time for sure. There were just 215,000 people in Delaware. Now we're over 1 million. Thousands had recently returned from fighting in World War II in Europe. But there were a couple striking similarities. Delawareans across the state were on edge coming out of the 1918 flu pandemic, and their driving was out of control. Roadway safety was a real problem, as it is today. In January 1923, then Governor William Denny proposed a statewide force to patrol motorists who were speeding down Delaware roads at more than 35 miles an hour. A lot has changed since then. But in all that time, one thing hasn't changed. And I've grown to appreciate that more than ever as your governor. And that's the value, the sense of service, and the character of the Delaware State Police. I'm sure we've all had our own experiences with the state police, whether you're working with them, working for them, or maybe having an awkward encounter with them out on the highways and byways across Delaware. We all have our stories. Often it's a story that involves a family member or a friend who wears or has worn the uniform. Or maybe it's an extraordinary incident seared in our memories. I know each of you have stories you could tell from almost every shift, and I've heard many of them. I've come to know the heart and soul of the men and women who serve. And so this is a really special day for all of us, but particularly for the women and men who put on the uniform. And I want to thank you for your service. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the superintendents that I have served with during my term as governor. Colonel Coop, Secretary McQueen, who I don't know where he is. I haven't seen him, and I haven't seen the colonel where they are, right in the front row. I wasn't looking closely enough. And of course, to Colonel Zebley, thank you for your leadership and for your guidance. We know that the job is hard. It's dangerous, and it takes its toll. We've all seen moments of great heroism and heartbreaking tragedy. We know that every trooper for 100 years has done the job knowing the dangers involved every day. And that's the most impressive part of your service. When others run away from danger, you run towards it to keep our communities safe. So today on this anniversary celebration, we should take a moment to remember those who lost their lives in the line of duty. Next week, of course, we will remember those 23 heroes as we do every year at the Delaware State Memorial. In my tenure as Lieutenant Governor, I remember well the tragic deaths of Franny Collender on the ice-covered curve on Route 1 at Odessa, and the terrible accident that killed Christopher Shea in Sussex County. And early in my tenure as governor, I stood with Louise Cummings as we lost Corporal Stephen Ballard due to his senseless murder at the Wawa on Route 40. Troopers Callender, Shea, and Ballard were special people. Their families were incredibly strong in the face of these tragic events. Their sacrifice, along with all the names inscribed on the DSP Memorial, are part of the legacy that we celebrate today. Another big part of the proud legacy of the Delaware State Police is their acts of heroism in the face of danger. When the rest of us run from danger, our troopers run into it. It's real, and it happens often. The bravery instilled in these women and men is second nature. I spend my days, as you know, traveling up and down our state, and I'm lucky to be accompanied by members of the Delaware State Police Executive Protection Unit. Uh-oh. I lost my third page. One of those members of the Executive Protection Unit, when he was off duty, ran in, rolled up on an accident, fiery accident on Route 1 in Kent County. He didn't hesitate. He jumped in with responding troopers and other civilians. I'm doing all right by myself, I think. And with those responding troopers, he was able to pull two people out of these fiery vehicles, saving their lives. There were others in the vehicles who didn't make it. That's the difference between troopers and the rest of us. Troopers are the ones who run into the fire to confront danger for the rest of us. After I heard about this incident, I called Tom to congratulate him, to thank him for the incredible act of heroism that he did. And his response was, "It's just part of my job." This is not just a job. This is a way of life for troopers, and it's a way of life that has kept Delaware safe for 100 years. A couple weeks ago, I attended the annual DSP Awards ceremony. We honored those who have gone above and beyond in their service to Delaware, as we do every year. The awards always include the life-saving awards for troopers who've actually saved lives in the line of duty. It's one of the awards I've been most impressed with over the years. These troopers save lives and often risk their own to do it. This year, the life-saving awards recipients were recognized for all kinds of heroic acts, whether it's performing CPR, assisting at a vehicle collision, or administering Narcan. These troopers didn't hesitate. They needed to do what was necessary to save a life. And so today we celebrate 100 years of the selfless service of the Delaware State Police. A lot has changed in the past century. Today, the DSP is more than 730 troopers strong. That's a big leap from 3 men and 3 motorcycles a century ago. Our men and women now patrol in suburban utility trucks with laptop computers and GPS systems. And by the way, speeders on our highways today are going 80 and 90 miles an hour, making the job even more critical than ever. What hasn't changed is the dedication of our troopers and the principles and service and sacrifice that guide them. And so here's to the first 100 years of the best in our state. And here's to all the families and friends who support them. On behalf of all Delawareans, congratulations to all of you, and thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, Governor Carney. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long to offer a few remarks.
Thank you. Welcome to the Senate chamber, which I have the privilege of presiding in as Lieutenant Governor with my Senate leaders Townsend and Sokola here, and our Minority Leader Hawker. Thank you for being here and joining us, along with our House leaders who are here as well, one of whom is no stranger, Pete Schwarzkopf, to you. We want to welcome you. And so the chaplain will appreciate this. I'd like to start, since we start in this chamber, sometimes with a prayer. I'm not going to do your prayer, but I'm going to start with a scripture that comes to mind, came to mind to me sitting here, and that is the book of Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacekeepers. We are so blessed in Delaware as we come together today to celebrate 100 remarkable years. As our governor laid out some of the memories that he has, I have multiple memories as well. Some are incredibly special as a nurse working in line with many of the state troopers here when we've had to take care of some of our most vulnerable in our community. Some of them are a little too humorous to put on television since we're being taped. But there are others that are good lessons, I think, that we all know. And it starts first and foremost with what I've learned by being with the many incredible troopers. And it starts with the lessons learned and shared in this front row. And it starts with the sharing of the number one priority often is not only safety to our state and community, but coming home when they can at night to you. And so to the family members who are here, I cannot thank you enough. When they walk out the door, you don't know what's coming ahead. I know our governor mentioned next week we'll be here honoring those that we lost in the line of duty, and I know later in our program. But we really genuinely thank you. I know as a nurse and a mom and a wife to a military veteran, and those calls come. There are no routine days. You know, you never really have a day off, as our governor indicated. And the state police for 100 years in all of the different uniforms have had to respond. No day off, no routine call. And to the families, we just really want you to know the incredible value. And I would be remiss to not recognize not only our active duty, but all of the retirees and also all of you who join us to celebrate the 100 years of our state police who are in law enforcement up and down this state, those of you from our municipal police, our Capitol Police, etc. I know our Attorney General and I have had the wonderful opportunity recently, thanks to the incredible partnership with our congressional delegates, and I know we'll hear from our senators, U.S. senators in a moment, with the opportunity to really be tackling some issues that were not present 100 years ago. We did have, as our governor stated, the pandemic of the Great Flu of 1918. We now have come forth with COVID. And as we've been out listening up and down the state, the Attorney General and I, we have other effects that our police here in Delaware, our state troopers, have responded to. And I'm really proud to our incredible leadership, our colonel, our lieutenant colonel, and Secretary McQueen, for their willingness to step up and work with us to expand drug diversion programs, mental health services, addressing our crises, not only in opioid, but in mental health across the state. We have now in every troop soon collaboration with drug diversion and mental health. And I want to reiterate the importance of that, as all across America is struggling with disunity, disharmony, threats to law enforcement. These are major steps, and Delaware troopers are being leaders across America in this area. And I cannot thank our leadership here for recognizing that. Many stories I could tell. Nate McQueen, I will not tell the stories of you and I sitting in the back row when I was a state representative at some of the unique town meetings. But your compassion, sir, and your passion, no matter what the effort, has always been recognized, and we appreciate you as a secretary, and to the colonel, lieutenant colonel, and all here today. You are in our communities, you're in our malls, you are in our faith settings, you are in our schools as SOR officers. Many of you are fearless leaders. And so I kind of started today with my reflection, trying to really emphasize the incredible transition. But I want to point to the men and women to my right, and a couple who snuck in here out in the audience who are among our General Assembly. Having served there with them, I know they don't have a role speaking today, but I can tell you every day, Delaware State Police is supported in this chamber and the House chamber. And it is our important role to have a legacy for another 100 years of public safety and security in keeping Delaware, the first state, safe and secure. So I'll stop there, and I'm going to end again with the Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacekeepers. Here's to 100 more remarkable years of peacekeeping in the state of Delaware. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. We will now hear remarks from Senator Thomas Carper.
Thank you, Sergeant. Good morning. How are you doing? How many of you remember the first time you walked into this building? Anybody? I remember walking in here, oh, Lord, it was, I think, January 1977. Pete DuPont had just been elected governor. I was elected state treasurer. And he gave his state of the state, if you will, address in the other chamber over there. I was in the back, very back row. And I'd been elected state treasurer. He announced, when he was giving his state of the state address, he announced we were bankrupt. And interesting enough, nobody had wanted to run for state treasurer the November before that. And he announced 2 months later they were bankrupt. And some of you remember Thurman Adams, a state senator from Sussex County, great legislator. I was sitting next to him right to the back row, and he leaned over and he said, "Treasurer Tom, now you know why I wanted to run for state treasurer, and because we're bankrupt." And in the midst of all that adversity, we have today AAA credit ratings under the leadership of our current governor. We have just so much to be thankful for. I travel around the state, travel around the country. I always ask people what gives them joy in their lives. What gives people joy in their lives? And you know what? Almost without exception, they say, "I like helping people." I like helping people. One of the best ways you can help somebody is make sure they have a job so they can support themselves and their families. When I was right out of the Navy and got an MBA at Delaware, and I went to work, not as state treasurer, but I was 27, 28 years old. I went to work in the Division of Economic Development and learned quite a bit about economic development and job creation. And among the things that are important for job creation are workforce, talented, trained workforce, really just good transportation system, the good education, good schools, clean air, clean water. But among the most important things is the rule of law. Rule of law. And that people can live in an environment where they don't have to worry about their safety of their families, that we sort of take that for granted. But if we didn't have rule of law in this state, we wouldn't have anything. It's what they say like about integrity. Integrity, if you have it, nothing else matters. Integrity, if you don't have it, nothing else matters. The same is true of public safety. So you probably don't think of yourself as part of the team that helps attract and retain jobs in the state, but it's among the most important things that you do and that we do as elected officials. On a personal note, I would close by saying, when he walked, I don't know if any of you would like to go back in time to places you spent time as your life, younger person, maybe things that were important. When we before we walked up the steps to come into this building, I remember that walking up those same steps when I was about to become governor of this state in 1993. Our son Ben was 3, our son Christopher was 5. And I remember holding him in my one arm, trying to give a state message with the 3-year-olds in my arms, and laid out what I hoped would be a path for the state in the future to continue to build on the good work of Governor Mike Castle. When we drove away that day and headed for home, we rode in a Chrysler Town and Country minivan. We traded in a Lincoln Town car that Mike Castle had left in a Chrysler Town and Country minivan with a couple of troopers. And we ended up having 4 troopers during the 8 troopers during the 8 years I was privileged to be a senator. And I won't mention all the names of people like Carl Bond and Pee Wee and Sean Sullivan and a bunch of other brothers. They were like part of our family, and we were like part of their family. And they protected our family through 8 years of really 8 wonderful years. Really a lot of blessings in those years. But I feel a special sense of family with you. I feel a special sense of family with your families. And I just want to say to your families, those that might be here within the sound of our voices, and maybe those who are not, thank you to the families. Thank you for sharing your husbands, your wives, your sons, your daughters, your children with all of us, and making this the first state, a wonderful state in which to live and raise a family. Congratulations. 100 years. Oh yeah, P.S. Anybody remember who was president of the United States 100 years ago? It was Warren Harding, a Republican from Ohio. I think I think I'm trying to remember who won the World Series that year. The Yankees, it was a Subway Series. That's right. The Yankees and the New York Giants played against each other. I don't remember who won, but who was the governor here? I was governor here. Oh, no, not really, not really. But a guy named Bill Denny was governor here, and I think one of his descendants ended up being in law enforcement when I was governor, and a good guy, and I'll always remember him. For all of you, for all you do, thank you. There'll be a special place in heaven, and hopefully we'll get there in about 100 years from now. All right. God bless you. Thank you so much. I'd also say, I thought we had a lot of good uniforms in the Navy, but you guys put us to shame.
Thank you, Senator Carper. We will now hear remarks from Senator Christopher Coons.
Good morning. Governor Carney, Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long, to Speaker Schwarzkopf, Captain Schwarzkopf, to Senator Sokola, Lieutenant Lawson, and so many others who have worn the uniform and who have served, to Superintendent Colonel Melissa Zebley and Secretary Nate McQueen, and to all who have led this remarkable force, who've served in it and have supported it. To the brothers and sisters of law enforcement from our state and from our surrounding states. To the men and women of the Delaware State Police, congratulations. God bless you and thank you. A century of service, something worthy of celebrating, something worthy of taking a moment to reflect on. No matter how the uniforms may have changed over time, as you've heard from our governor, lieutenant governor, and senator, and I will simply reinforce, the men and women of law enforcement serve with a simple, common truth, that they are willing to love their neighbors so much that they leave every day their homes not knowing if they will return, and they are willing to lay down their lives. I don't know if you're all praying people. I am someone who believes in the power of prayer, and one of the things I raised my children with was the idea that every night we should pray for the men and women who serve and protect us in law enforcement, for those who serve in our armed forces, for those who serve in hospitals and in ambulances, but frankly, those who keep us safe. We hand you an awesome power. With a badge and a gun, you uniquely in our nation, in our state, are given the power under our Constitution to protect life, to take life, to ensure the order of our society. The laws that are passed here, that are signed into law by governors, former and present, you implement them. Without you, there is no society, no order that we recognize. So let me just reflect for a moment on the memorial that is outside, because this order only means something if you're actually willing to sign on the dotted line. We have with us some of the families of those who've paid that ultimate price. And I hope as you close this day, you'll take a moment and however you pray or reflect, thank them. I see Louise and Abigail here and the families of others who have fallen, and I just simply wanted to express my thank you to you. As those names have been added to the wall, it is important that all of us remember the conditions under which families of those who are members of the Delaware State Police and all law enforcement serve. That uncertainty, that challenge, that difficulty. Law enforcement has always been a difficult career, but in some ways recently it's been more difficult than ever. We ask you to go and interact with people when they're having their worst day ever, when they are not conducting themselves as gentlemen and ladies, and yet we demand that you treat them with respect and deference, that you have your best day while someone else is having their worst. That is a very high standard indeed. And that's why we owe you nothing less than the best of support and investment, training, partnership with federal law enforcement, state and local law enforcement. And this day, we thank you for 100 years of continuous and dedicated service. As the co-chair of the Senate Law Enforcement Caucus, a bipartisan group of senators who try our best to deliver the resources you deserve, know that my day will end with a prayerful reflection on one important scripture, John 15:13. No greater love hath any man than this, that he would lay down his life for his friends. Thank you for making all of us your friends, your neighbors, your fellow citizens of this great state by being willing to do that for a century. Here's to another century in the future of great, disciplined, brave, honorable service, of being those very people who make this a great state. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Senator Coons. It is my honor to welcome Secretary of Safety and Homeland Security, Nathaniel McQueen, Jr.
Good morning. As I look at the colonels in the front row, I think back to one of the things we can never control And even to Colonel today, we can never control the weather. And it's one of the busiest times for our folks out there on patrol. Sometimes when those stormy weather's coming, but we always find a way to persevere. And the Colonel is always doing that as well. So to all of our honored guests, Governor Carney, all of our federal delegation, members of the General Assembly, Colonel Zebley and the executive staff. Governor, one of the things I will suggest to you is the next time you have your State of the State is you have this audience. Absolutely. And another thing I learned from you this morning, and that we all share as members of the Delaware State Police, is that it takes a team effort. It takes a team effort. So thank you, and thank you all for joining us this morning. And most of all, welcome to those who have served and currently serve as members of the Delaware State Police. I would like to start by thanking those members of the Delaware State Police, past and present, who have worked tirelessly in preparation for all the events celebrating the centennial anniversary of the division. Today is a great day to be a trooper and a member of the Delaware State Police family, and to be a part of a proud legacy of the agency. Thank you for the former leaders of our state, the governor, members of the General Assembly, who had the vision and the steadfast commitment to establish the Delaware State Police. They could never have imagined how far the agency has come. The history of the Delaware State Police is forever tied to the history of the state of Delaware. The division has grown and adapted as the state's population and the demands of our citizens have changed, from providing basic police patrol services in 1923 to the many highly specialized units in place today, formed to meet the challenges of the 21st century. The agency has also experienced challenges and setbacks that mirror those of our state, and has grown in its technology, advancements, and diversity and inclusion. Thank you to our federal delegation, the governor, and the current members of the General Assembly for your continued support. With your support, the Delaware State Police has become not only one of the best law enforcement agencies in the country, it has become the standard in law enforcement. Today's troopers remain committed to their core values and continuous improvement, and they stand on a strong foundation that was forged by a proud history. At their core, you will find good people doing great things in service to our state. Troopers committed to the core values of honor, integrity, courage, loyalty, attitude, discipline, and service. The Delaware State Police is not only important to those who have served and currently wear the uniform, but to every citizen and visitor to our state. Today, we celebrate a century of service for an agency that takes pride in where it has been and who they have become. The division and the vision of the Delaware State Police will always be focused on the core task of providing safety to all Delawareans. Over the next century, with the support of all of Delaware citizens, the Delaware State Police will continue to be successful and thrive with unlimited potential due to the excellence and dedication of the civilian employees and uniformed troopers who make up the division. Let us remember and honor the service, commitment, and sacrifice from all of those who have served our state as a member of the Delaware State Police, and all of our fallen heroes who gave all. From the early establishment of the Highway Patrol with the 13 officers on motorcycles to the thriving agency of over 1,000 uniformed troopers and civilian personnel, providing patrol, criminal investigations, and numerous other law enforcement service, the Delaware State Police has remained dedicated to its mission and dedicated to the safety and security of our state for the past century. I will end with a passage from where the Delaware State Police 50th anniversary story begins. The history of Delaware State Police is more than names and dates and statistics associated with the growth of our organization. It is a story of human dedication, the task of making Delaware a safe place to live. It is a history for which the men and women who made it are extremely proud. May God bless the men and women of the Delaware State Police as they continue to serve and protect in partnership with the citizens of our state over the next 100 years. Happy anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary McQueen. It is my distinct honor to introduce the Superintendent of the Delaware State Police, Colonel Melissa Zebley.
Good morning. Welcome to this celebration of the Delaware State Police's century of service to the first state. It is my honor to speak on behalf of the 1,000 current members of the DSP family, both sworn and non-sworn, as well as honor the generation of public servants who have developed and expanded the legacy of our proud agency. Thank you to the distinguished guests who have been acknowledged and joined me here today. But as my eyes, our eyes, gaze out into this crowd, I want to acknowledge how proud I am to speak for you, to serve with you, and to reach back in time and pay tribute to the women and men who built this fine agency into what you see today. We are joined today by 7 former colonels whose years of service as a trooper lead us back as far as 1953 in Colonel Ford. It's a pleasure to be in all of your company. My heart is filled with pride to be the trooper, the colonel, standing in front of all of you today and follow your proud legacy of service. Thank you all. Thank you for your leadership, your presence here today, and certainly to our retired and active troopers of all ranks, our active and retired non-sworn members who serve with distinction throughout our state, our honorary commanders, our allied partners from within Delaware and throughout the region, our own family members, and certainly members of the community we are proud to protect and serve. On April 28th, 1923, at 10:25 a.m., a short distance from where we stand today, where Delaware State House was located at that time, the DSP was officially born under legislation passed by the General Assembly. In the 100 years since that date, your Delaware State Police Department has demonstrated dedication, service, and pride, which we believe are values woven in beautiful French blue fabric. As we display significant elements of our collective service in the visual manner you see here today, our cruisers, our uniforms, our insignias, I am proud to reflect on the heart that beats behind the badge of every uniform worn, within the command of each cruiser, and also demonstrated in the diverse and evolving competencies of our non-sworn members, those who serve as a lifeline to those in need, those who reveal remarkable compassion as victims advocates, and those who demonstrate excellence in forensics, fiscal, human resources, technology, maintenance, and administrative disciplines, to name a few. The beautiful sea of faces I see in the balcony today. Within each of you beats the heart of a public servant. Today, I pay tribute to the women and men who have created our culture of honor and pride. As a symbol of your commitment to our culture, we flew a 100th anniversary flag for 1 week over each of our 8 operational troops throughout the first quarter of the year, with its final destination being our headquarters complex. As military lore tells us, a flag is more than a symbol. A flag is a living testament to the courageous women and men who answered the call. In our case, the call to public safety. It is my honor today to dedicate this flag to all members of the Delaware State Police, past and present, all of you in the audience today and those who preceded us. This flag portrays the centennial image created some 5 years ago as we began planning for this year of celebration. The image chosen purposefully incorporates the winged wheel depicted on our first uniform and the modern-day shoulder patch as bookends signifying our proud heritage and uniform history, and serves as an illustration of every member in our vast history. As this flag traversed this state, from Penny Hill to Bridgeville, each troop demonstrated tremendous pride and creativity in the manner in which it was displayed. From reveille to retreat, this was much more than raising and lowering a flag. As shared with me by a younger trooper, it was about the legacy of all who came before you and the history being written by those you serve alongside of today. Whether raised by troopers in full Class A uniform, accompanied by reveille on a trumpet at Troop 2, captured with the use of a drone at Troop 7, or raised by the DSP and the state of Delaware's senior member with 72 years of service, Miss Carney of Troop 4, this flag, along with the pride of the members of the DSP, was on full display. The rich symbolism of this flag is not merely contained by its image, but more importantly by all that is woven into its fabric, the brilliant blue and gold that holds it together. Each stitch of this material tells the story of your service, the story of those with a public servant's heart, the members of the DSP whom we've never met, those generations whose tenure ran parallel with the vast changes in our nation and our state's history. It represents all who have demonstrated moral and physical courage in the face of fear and uncertainty, those who have experienced unspeakable loss or sustained injury, and those who have offered the greatest compassion while also in the unwavering pursuit of justice for our fellow citizens. Those with the capacity to possess fight and faith in the same moment. Those who believe that our mission is the bedrock of our agency. This flag, unfolded in brilliant blue and gold here today, is also forever held in place by this solid frame, which represents our uncompromising commitment to our core values and our unfailing promise to protect. Those words describe each of you. We also realize that this symbol of our service represents all of our members who sacrificed their lives while fulfilling our sacred mission and upholding their oath. As we are joined today by many of our surviving family members who know all too well about the significance of a flag, in particular, a folded flag. It is with our deepest loyalty and respect we honor you and our 23 fallen members today during our roll call, as much as we did when this very flag was raised and stood sentinel in their honor over their troops of service. Knowing, studying, and respecting our history will forever include their sacrifice and the enduring support you have always shown us. Today, as we celebrate the many memories behind our mission, as we illustrate the storied evolution of our vehicles, our uniforms, our expanding service to our state, and our evolving diversity, we are not merely telling you what we do. We are showing you who we are. As this flag is unfurled in full color here today, we recognize that it transcends generations. It captures every heart who serves in this agency, those in our 100th recruit class who represent the start of our second century, and it waves forevermore into a bold and bright future that we visualize in the blue distance. We are an agency of values, of purpose, and of family. It is my greatest honor to represent your faithful service. Be well, stay safe, and may God bless you all. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Colonel Zebley. It is my privilege to now introduce Major Sean Moriarty, followed by Major William Crotty, who will both present the reading of the concurrent resolution.
It is our honor to present from the Delaware State Senate, the 152nd General Assembly Senate Concurrent Resolution, sponsored by Senator Lawson, retired lieutenant from Delaware State Police, Speaker of the House, Representative Schwarzkopf, retired captain, Senators Buxton, Hawker, Huxtable, Mansavinos, Pettyjohn, Richardson, Zakola, Townsend, Walsh, Wilson, joined by Representatives Bumbosh, Briggs King, Bush, Carson, Collins, Dukes, Gray, Kay Johnson, Ramon, D. Short, Michael Smith, Spiegelman, Vanderwen, Kay Williams, and Urick, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Delaware State Police. Whereas the calendar year 2023 marks the 100th anniversary of the Delaware State Police, the police force has been in existence for over a century. Though it was not until 1923 that it became a full-service police agency. The agency began in 1917 as the State Highway Commission, followed by a growing movement to create a statewide policing force focused on the state's expanding roadway infrastructure, resulting in the formation of the State Highway Police in 1919. On April 28, 1923, legislation was passed by the Delaware General Assembly that led to the creation of a state police force under the authority of the State Highway Commission. By the late 1930s, police stations had been established in all three counties. Since that time, the Delaware State Police has served as a conservator of the peace throughout the state, with its members having the responsibility of suppressing all acts of violence and enforcing all laws relating to the safety of persons and property.
Over the last 100 years, the Delaware State Police has been recognized as a professional, highly trained, and essential part of Delaware's public safety team. The Delaware State Police is committed to the preservation of property and human life as they serve all citizens and visitors of the state of Delaware. 23 Delaware State Troopers have made the ultimate sacrifice for the citizens of Delaware. It remains essential that the public recognize the sacrifices and contributions made by the Delaware State Police to the safety, protection of its citizens and visitors of this great state. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the Senate of the 152nd General Assembly of the State of Delaware, the House of Representatives concurring therein, that we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Delaware State Police.
Thank you, Major Moriarty and Major Crotty. It is now my honor to introduce Major Peter Sawyer, who will provide the history of the Delaware State Police Morning Pen and begin the roll call for the line of duty death.
Members of the Delaware State Police wear the DSP Morning Pin to honor and remember our fallen brothers and sisters. The DSP Morning Pin is worn by all members while in uniform during the entire month of May or when attending any law enforcement memorial event attending any police, fire, or EMS funeral or viewing, or at the discretion of the superintendent. No other unit insignias or awards are worn while wearing the DSP mourning pin. All members wear the pin in the exact same fashion. The DSP mourning pin is featured on the display to my left as the foundation of the uniform we wear in honor of our fallen. It is now my honor to read the names of the 23 Delaware State Troopers who have lost their lives in the line of duty. Patrolman Francis Ryan. Sergeant Thomas H. Lamb. TFC Paul H. Sherman. Corporal Leroy L. Lakites. Corporal James D. Orvis. Corporal Raymond B. Wilhelm. Trooper William F. Mayer. TFC Harold B. Rupert. Trooper Robert A. Paris. Colonel Eugene B. Ellis. Trooper William C. Keller. Trooper Ronald L. Carey. Trooper David C. Yarrington. Trooper George W. Emery. Lieutenant William I. Jerman. Corporal David B. Pulling. Trooper Kevin J. Mallon. Trooper Gerard T. Dowd. Corporal Robert H. Bell. Trooper Sandra M. Wagner. Corporal Francis M. Collender. Corporal Christopher M. Shea. Corporal Stephen J. Ballard.
Wow, again. Thank you, Lieutenant Packard. At this time, I would like to introduce Delaware State Police Chaplain, Reverend Florence Cephas, an 18-year member of the Delaware State Police family. She will offer the benediction, followed by Major Jason Sapp, who will close out the ceremony.
Reflect on the storied history of this phenomenal organization today and over the past several months. We will certainly continue to do so throughout the balance of this calendar year as well. The Delaware State Police's yesterdays are certainly a source of pride and clearly serve as the ever-growing foundation on which the women and men of the division, both civilian and sworn, continue to build. With that, I will conclude today's momentous gathering by talking briefly about today and tomorrow. The stark reality is that those who wear the Delaware blue and buff of the Delaware State Police today, on this very day, not only constitute those who close out our first century of service, but perhaps more significantly, begin century number 2. Today, divisional employees embrace the concepts of collaboration and ingenuity in ways our forebears perhaps could never have imagined as they patrolled the length of this state year-round on motorcycles, assisting stranded motorists and keeping the peace. If the likes of Joseph Jumbo Bonificino, one of the earliest Delaware highway policemen, also known as one of the Four Horsemen, knew that a century after he became one of the first men to safeguard the state's highways, that troopers would work hand in hand with counselors from the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health to pursue alternatives to incarceration for those who are in greater need of help than of punishment, he might be taken aback. From an equipment and technology perspective, if he knew that today's troopers weren't relegated to motorcycles as their only means of safeguarding the entirety of the state, but instead leveraged all types of motorized vehicle, boats, helicopters, UAVs, equestrian partners, and complex computer software applications to do so, I suspect he might be hard-pressed to believe it. If old Jumbo knew that today's troopers not only patrol the state with cutting-edge tools necessary to thwart a terrorist attack, but also medical equipment capable of reversing a heart attack or the results of a fentanyl overdose, he would likely be amazed. The trooper of today is such a marked progression of all things good over the officer of 1923 that it begs the question, what will the trooper of 2123 look like? With new technological advancements impacting the profession every day, it is hard to say. I would argue this, that no matter where technology takes us as a society, this profession,
a profession grounded in ensuring the existence of a civilized society, will always require brave women and men capable and willing to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That necessary human element will never change. I am not alone in being slightly envious of our civilian employees. Their 55th birthdays are arguably no different than their 54th or 56th birthdays. Not the case for those of us in uniform. None of us that wear this uniform can escape that 55th birthday and the mandatory retirement that follows. The upside to that reality is that the women and men waiting in the wings to lead this organization into the second century are every bit as committed, capable, and deserving of leading as the team that stands before you. And the women and men that will come behind them will arguably be even better prepared to take on that collective mantle of leadership. I say this with abject confidence because of the multitude of ways that we prepare our troopers from the time they enter the training academy to lead. Our in-house leadership courses, coupled with our continued leverage of leadership opportunities such as the FBI National Academy, are meant to ensure that those in positions of leadership are constantly striving to better themselves. Delaware troopers collectively owe that to themselves, the division, and most importantly, to the citizens we serve. In a moment, we will conclude today's ceremony, but first, I will issue several calls to action. And since you all stood, I'd ask you all to please have a seat. You weren't supposed to stand, so you threw me off. The first call to action for all retired divisional members is simple. Today and every day, embrace who you are. Delaware State Police, civilians and troopers. You may watch from the proverbial sidelines now, but you all should swell with pride knowing that you all contributed to who we are and what the division is today. Your past efforts and sacrifices are commendable and celebrated by those of us still in service. The call to action for every active civilian employee is to always recognize your most important roles in ensuring that the great state of Delaware and its people enjoy safety, security, and justice, particularly for those who find themselves victimized. Without each of you and your committed service, none of what we do could be realized. And finally, the call to action for every active duty trooper, from the members of our 100th recruit class who are in the house to the colonel, is simple. Serve to the best of your ability. Serve with pride. And always serve with the requisite humility that sets each of you as members of one of the finest law enforcement organizations to have ever graced this earth apart from the rest. You are the best of the best, and this state could not be in better hands as the division begins its second century of dedicated service to the people of this great state. Momentarily, I will bring all divisional members, past and present, to their feet. For those that will remain seated, you are here out of support for us, so thank you for joining us here this afternoon. We appreciate your continued support. We pledge to you that you, your families, your friends, all residents and visitors to this state will always receive the very best effort we collectively have to offer. I would now ask that all active divisional members, both civilian and sworn, if capable, stand, if not already standing, and assume the position of attention. All retired divisional members as well, please. With that, on my command, all Delaware State Police employees, past and present, will offer a solitary salute before being dismissed. In doing so, we salute our nation's flag as it flies proudly within these chambers. And we salute all members of the division, to include those who cannot be with us today. On behalf of all of us, God bless each of you. The Delaware State Police, our allied law enforcement and first responder agencies, and the United States of America.
Detail! Present! Who? Order! Who? Detail! Dismiss!